The Harvest Home retreat is coming up soon, and we wanted to take this opportunity to share a little bit more about what's in our hearts around offering it and what it's all about. It's a retreat for personal and planetary grief and praise.
So what came up for me in terms of personal and planetary transformation is there's just this sense that when people come together in this way, in community, in a way that our ancestors would have done, and there's something in us, I think, that recognizes all of that, that when we do this work together, there's, as well as what it does for our own personal experience and our relationship with our grief, it's that there's the sort of ripples, if depending on how you feel about these things, there's maybe something energetically that happens in the moment with that. But I think actually when we give space to honor the grief within ourselves and to find the other things that are able then to come through, our sort of our joy for life and everything that comes from having this experience with others, it's actually how we are then in the world changes, I think. And yeah, those ripples stretch out. So I think, the personal and the planetary, they are, they're just hand in hand. Yeah.
What you're saying, Sue, makes me think something that really draws me to this work is like the systemic or societal cultural responses to grief, particularly in the dominant culture. My experience of the dominant culture is that it's very repressed and it's very shunned. And I mean, I think things are changing, but kind of generally, grief is sort of very private, very singular, like one-to-one in a room, with a therapist. And I think the beauty, or some of the beauty of this work, is being in circle, like you say, being in a gathering. Our bones kind of remember that. We know that. Our being knows that. And the inherent, that's a big word, but the inherent healing of being seen and heard and feeling connected, and that sort of co-regulation, if you like, from the nervous system. But grief is a stuck energy that the culture isn't really helping to move, can move in these spaces. And then, as you say, what else is possible? What else also wants to flow? Because this is part of life, and there are other parts of life too, hey? And one of the metaphors that we've been offered and that we work with a lot in this work is the two wings of the bird. So we have grief and we have joy or praise, and that's very much, what we want to celebrate and explore this weekend.
My own journey in this work, I first came to grief tending in the wider sense through a teacher called Joanna Macy, and having struggled for many years with my own suffering, really, and how to find a way through, how to come into life. Joanna Macy gave me a piece that has been invaluable, which is that my suffering is part of this wider collective wound, and it always strikes me as such a beautiful thing that when we come together in these circles, we're really welcoming whatever is present for each of us. And sometimes we say there's no hierarchy in grief, so the big griefs and the small griefs and everything in between, that this human journey, that we suffer, and life is hard, and particularly in these times, there's a lot of kind of complex grief, I think, that many of us are carrying, and we start to see how it's kind of all connected in some way, and my suffering and your suffering are part of some whole, and I'm carrying something of the collective wound, the collective trauma, perhaps, and it impacts me, and it shows up in my life in unique ways, perhaps, and we're each bringing the threads that we're bringing, but that they become woven together in some tapestry that gives meaning, makes sense, is a relief, is a kind of medicine in itself.